congratulate the organizing committee for this venue. I think that it's great to see that a lot of people are coming to see these topics. And the second thing is that I would like to thank also the opportunity to be here and talk about things that we are passionate about, which is energy and innovation. So first of all, I'll go through what are the current challenges that we are facing on the energy world. Then I'm going to derive some of the trends that result from those challenges. And then what are we doing at EDP aligned with the trends that we are seeing in the market? So I think the previous speakers talked about the questions of trying to find how energy was important and how important it is to maintain the right balance of the equation of having abundant, affordable, and clean energy for the years to come. And the interesting thing is that population is growing. We all know that. We all know that 9 billion is the number that people are talking about of 2050. And 9 billion, and there is not much that you can do about this number. It's just going to happen. Now, the other thing is that 50% of energy consumption is responsible for the first billion of people. The poorest billion only takes 4%. So this makes us wonder if things, the way we are consuming today, how the consumption is going to evolve. And we know that economic development is linked to human development that is linked to energy consumption. So the point is that although population will grow about 50% between 2000 and 2050, energy consumption is going to grow about 100%. This makes us wonder, where are we going to find this energy? And the previous speakers talked about the questions of the reserves. Let's not talk about the reserve. Let's assume that the reserves will be there. That forget peak oil. We will have energy, fossil fuel energy, for the next 100 years. Still, we have this challenge of getting 100% of energy growth from 2000 to 2050. And this makes us think about the concept that I'm going to spend some time, which is energy return of energy employed. It's a very interesting concept in the sense that what happens to a lion that takes more energy chasing the prey than the energy that it takes from the prey? It just dies after a while. Now, when we see that the pre-industrial revolution in farming, we see that this factor was about between 1 to 5. So no wonder why population didn't grow during until the pre-industrial years. So after the industrial revolution happened, this number grew to 40 and 50% of the current days. So we are able to, with less energy, to provide a lot more food to feed this world. That's why we were able to grow. That's why, in terms of population, but also in terms of building this building. It's because oil. It's because it was affordable, it was cheap, it's because we could multiply many times our own forces. Now, what is happening in terms of this factor in the oil industry? So in the beginning of the 20th century, the number was above 100. Quite frankly, there were wells that had 200. So you put one unit of energy, and you would take 200 units of energy. That was remarkable. You could do so many things with this multiplier. Now, currently, the numbers are around 10 for the deep water oil exploration. And if you go to oil sands, the number is actually 3. So this makes us wonder that as we begin, even if we have the reserves, as we begin to use those reserves, we need to put more energy to take that energy back. And that means that it's something that feeds onto itself, and it means that prices are going to increase, despite if the demand itself increases. So we have these two kind of effects that are going to feed each other, and prices are set to increase significantly. Now, I was saying that the reason why we were able to feed the world was because oil had a nice multiplier, and that multiplier went to farming. It takes a lot of oil to raise cattle. And so it's not a wonder to see that food prices are very well linked to oil prices. So that's why it's so important for this equation to have affordable prices, affordable energy. It's not just because of energy. I always tease my friends saying, you know, what would happen if tomorrow there were no more oil? And people say, okay, I would have to I would have to go by foot or by bike. No, you would starve. You would starve. Because we wouldn't have oil for fertilizers, we wouldn't have oil for the trucks, we wouldn't have oil to bring the food to the supermarkets. We would starve. But even if it's not a question of price, even if it's not a question of reserves, then we have another problem, which is the known reserves far exceed what the atmosphere can handle. And IEA is saying that the door for the 2 degrees Celsius is closing. And if by 2017 we don't set up the things to change the way we are consuming energy, we won't make it to the 2 Celsius degrees. And let's not, because the 2 Celsius degrees means that there's nothing going to happen with 2 Celsius. That's not true. I mean, with 2 degrees Celsius, we still will have challenges with the climate change. We need to adapt ourselves. The problem is that if we go beyond the 2 Celsius degrees, we really don't know where we are going. It's uncharted territory. So this is an important element, and although the current crisis makes very hard to discuss this, you know, things are coming. The train is coming. We need to think about this. So this was a little bit gloom. So let's see what are the trends to solve these things. And I'm very positive on that. So the first trend, it's actually where I'm working currently, is energy efficiency. See that 40%, 44% is the way to how we are going to solve the supply side of energy. We are just not going to consume. And the interesting thing is that not only it's the lowest, the cheapest energy, has also the lowest cost for abating CO2. Also, it improves security of supply because we just don't have to import. And last, but very important in the current times, it's because energy efficiency is very labor intensive. And because it's labor intensive, it creates jobs. So it's a nice match, actually. It's a nice match, and it's a way that can help us to solve the current crisis, particularly in Europe. The other thing it creates value, because when we are reducing our imports, when that money is staying within EU and is creating jobs, we are actually creating, through multiplication effects, a lot more value to the economy. Now, the other thing is decarbonization. So we are setting for a reduction of 80% by 2050, and from the levels of 1990. What does it mean for the power sector? It means that the power sector needs to be 100% carbon-free. So 100% carbon-free, where will it come from? What is the generation mix? It means that more than 50% will come from renewables. And let me tell you that Portugal currently has 50% of the power sector coming from hydro and renewables. Then you have 20% coming from nuclear and the rest from CCS, which is a kind of question mark because CCS is very expensive. It's an unproven technology. You need to make sure that you do the first examples, that they are successful, and it just takes time. It just takes a lot of time. The other thing is that if energy efficiency is not improved, this goal for renewables just increases. So when you think about the policy, the EU policy, which is based on energy efficiency, carbon, and renewables, this is actually a three-leg stool. If for some reason you take one of the stalls, the stall simply cannot balance itself. Okay, so it's very important because of these links to be connected with each other. The other consequence of energy efficiency and decarbonization is electrification, because whenever you change the fuel to power, you increase the end use of energy. So it's just more efficient. And the other thing is that currently in the energy sector, in the power sector, there are already zero power generation technologies that are available and they are on the money. So you can actually, it's a lot easier to decarbonize through the power sector. And last but not least, you have economies of scale. And with those economies of scale, you can have a lower cost of CO2. So, and the interesting thing is that today, although whenever we are talking about energy, people always think about power. There is some kind of a strange information effect that people talk about energy, they think about power. But power only stands for 20%. But with this electrification, because of decarbonization, because of all of these technologies, what we are going to see is now a significant increase, and we are going to double the penetration of power in the end-use consumption of energy. Now, let me take some time explaining these very complicated graphs, okay? But I think it's worth to explain them. So the first graph, the left graph on your side, you have on the axis, you have the efficiency of the electric sector. So if you have 1, it means that it's just renewables or nuclear. If you have less than 40%, it means that it's all coal, okay? This has to do with the change from primary energy to end-use energy, okay? Now, on the Y graph, on the Y-axis, you have the efficiency for transport. And what you can see on the gray lines, you have diesel, you have gasoline, gasoline with compressed natural gas. And of course, because you are not taking energy from the power sector, they don't change, their efficiency does not change with the efficiency of the power sector. But then you have 2 graphs. One is, let's produce power, use gas to produce power on a CCGT, on a combined gas turbine, combined cycle gas turbine. And then use that power to drive my car. And you see that the efficiency is 2 times more at the primary energy consumption, 2 times more than the traditional vehicles today. And if you think about the hydrogen economy, which we have some doubts, not just because of the infrastructure, but because of these other numbers. Having power, producing hydrogen with the power, then we'll only get this total effect of efficiency. So it's actually less efficient than the current transportation modes. But let's think about, so this is the equation on the efficiency side. okay? This is a very important equation when we were talking about the returns of energy employed. This is the equation. On this side of the chart, we are seeing the specific emissions of the generation. And we see Portugal looking very good because a lot of our power comes from renewables and from gas turbine. So the effect is that our average emissions is around 200 grams per megawatt hour. And what we can see is that by the transportation effects, you can see that the electric vehicle, is a lot more efficient from a CO2 standpoint. So all of these things says that transport and electric mobility is the way to go to meet the targets that we have. Now, it will take a lot. It will take innovation. We need to solve the problem of the batteries. But I think we will do that because it just makes sense. The other thing is grids. We have transport grids and distribution smart grids. And on the transport grids, because if we are going to renewables, we have a problem of intermittency. We don't have ways to store it at a utility scale level. So the only way we can increase the resilience of the system is by connecting the system in a copper plate in a way that I can have renewables where they can make sense. I can have gas turbines where they make sense, and then just make sure that everything is connected and plays well as a single system. Now, distribution smart grids is a very important element because it just facilitates the adoption on energy efficiency measures. It allows for distributed generation, the integration of distributed generation, and also it's an enabler of the electric mobility and distributed storage. And I connected electric mobility with distributed storage on purpose, because at the end of the day, if you think about it, a car with a battery is a distributed storage. This links me to the final trend, a very important trend, which is driven by technology, it is going distributed. I think that it's fair to say that the power sector or the energy sector is going from the mainframe era of computers to the PC era of computers. We all know where the history ended, right? We all have laptops, tablets, and things like that just multiplied in a very short period of time. We believe that this is going to happen also in the energy sector, because there are a couple of technologies that are evolving and they are mixing together, and the pacing of innovation is going to change quite dramatically. So Ivan Martin was talking about the experience curve, which is a very important element. An experience curve means, and you saw the slope, it means that how much the unit cost is going to drop when I double the accumulated installed capacity. Now, the problem on power, and there was also a discussion this on the panel, the problem on the energy sector is that it's very long, it's very capex intensive, the time to market is very long, and the assets are long lived. So you tend to be very risk averse, and no wonder if you don't do many experiments, it's no wonder that innovation is really slow. It's just a question of it's a structural thing. Now, when you begin to have small projects, when you begin to do a lot of projects, the experience curve dynamics just speed up. You saw the curve for photovoltaic generation. It's incredible. I mean, you are putting every year, you are just doubling the capacity, the installed capacity. It's increasing. You are dropping the price quite significantly. So this is changing significantly the paradigm. When we are going on distributed storage, if we solve the problem of batteries on the cars, we'll solve the problems of having batteries in your own home. If you have distributed generation because it's on the money, It's at grid parity. It means that it costs the same to buy from outside. You need to have energy management systems that manage all these kind of things. So I have more power than I have right now. I'm producing more power than I'm consuming right now. So let's store it, or let's, because we don't have storage today, let's turn on the air condition and store that energy on a thermal way. And so today this is possible. I'm not talking about rocket science that doesn't exist. I'm talking about something that truly exists today. And grid parity is around the corner. We actually believe that grid parity will come at least to the southern countries in Europe well before 2020, as Ivan was saying. Just see the drop in prices and what do they mean in terms of euros per megawatt hour in terms of levelized cost. So today we have 1.8, and I can tell you that we have done some projects this year, that we are doing this year, that are around 1.5. We saw prices dropping around 30%. So just to have an idea, prices of really good, I'm not talking about strange photovoltaic panels. I'm talking about good photovoltaic panels. We saw drops from 75 to 50 in less than 6 months. So this is really interesting. We are entering in a new era. So what are we doing as ZDP? We are betting on what we believe. So in terms of renewables, some years ago we made the bet, and we are now in less than 4 years, we are the third largest renewable company in the world. We are also putting a lot of effort on building hydro, because hydro is a very nice way of storing power. And we are building the biggest hydro projects in Europe. We also built a project called the WindFloat. I'll talk that a little more. And we are the market leaders in photovoltaic generation in Portugal. We also have interest in electric mobility, in smart grids, and also on energy efficiency. And I'm going to talk this more specifically. So we are doing research. We are putting some bets on wind offshore partnerships. I mean, the numbers need to be, the projects need to be profitable, but we have a project in UK of 2.4 gigas along with Repsol, and we are working together to make this true. The other thing is that we recently installed a wind floating turbine in the north of Portugal, and this is combining renewables with oil and gas technology. So this is quite remarkable, and we feel very proud of this project. This is the first wind offshore project in the world without any load support. I mean, it's floating. The other thing is InnovGrid in InnovCity. Évora is InnovCity. I encourage you to visit Évora. It's a very nice town. It's a very historical town in Portugal. And we did a project of installing 30,000 smart meters and seeing how people react and deriving ways of interacting with people to make people engaged on this project and see what is the return that we can get in energy efficiency from this project. This is something that is considered the #1 project in Europe by the European Commission that is drawing some conclusions as a whole for Europe. The other thing that we launched 4 months ago is a problem that was called Save to Compete. As you know, Portugal is currently under IMF program, and competitiveness and funding is a very important element for our companies. So we were very cognizant of as a company, and the only way we can be a healthy company is if the economy itself is healthy. So we set up this program, and it's a very innovative program because it's totally privately funded and is aimed at energy efficiency in B2B. So what we do is that basically the companies, they register themselves in the website. In that website, they have to characterize themselves in terms of their energy consumption. And based on that information, we are able to send them a free report saying how much can they save energy. So we had to develop a lot of knowledge on this element. And the companies that actually have very good prospects of energy saving, we actually go to them and say, let's do an audit, an energy audit. And if I find, and I'm going to commit you some savings. And if I find those savings and I'm able to propose to you a project that I will pay for the project and I get paid through the savings, we will do that project. And currently we already have, with 4 months, we already have 1 terawatt hour of projects in this pipeline. And we are very, very proud of the project and at the same time very hopeful of success of the project. Last but not least, we were talking about energy poverty and what are you doing about that? And we don't have an idea, but there is a lot of bad consumption of energy in this nowhere land that we see around the world. People use kerosene, which produces a lot of CO2. It's very expensive for those people. And by putting together a project, we put 1.3 million on this project, and we helped around 77,000 people. We built 11 institutional buildings, 15 schools, and 2 hospitals with this amount of money. I mean, this is LEDs, solar. Just let me give you an example. So for the little kids, they have a battery with a lamp that they would have to go every day to the school to charge the lamp. And then they would go home with that lamp, with light. They could do their homework, and the family could eat with the light. But that would only last for 1 day. In the next day, it would have to go to the school again. So these kind of smart strategies, these were things that we developed on this project, and we feel very proud of this project. And we think that there is a big opportunity here to make sure that the way we evolve in the world is sustainable and makes sense to everyone involved. So main takeaways. Technology and innovation are needed to meet energy consumption growth in a sustainable way. That's the key element. Going forward, the main trends to keep in mind is that energy systems will evolve in terms towards energy efficiency, decarbonization, electrification, and moreover, going distributed. EDP is strongly committed in promoting innovation and sustainable development, pursuing opportunities that, of course, are aligned with these main trends because we do believe on these trends. Thank you.
Hi, Kevin Stockvis with London Business School. For a utility company who's in the business of selling energy, I was hoping you could describe where your incentives come from to get your clients to consume less energy.
Very good question. I always have that question from my clients. And I have several ways of answering them. The first one was, what would happen to the fixed phone companies if they didn't go to the mobile technology? Okay, that's a way to answer. The other way to answer is that if this makes sense, if I don't do it, someone else will do it. Okay, so let's take some of that value. The third one, which is a very important one, is that my market share in the Iberian market is much, unfortunately, it's much smaller than my megawatt that I'm getting from that customer. So let's put some numbers. If my market share is, say, a number 20%, when I'm saving one megawatt hour to that customer, I'm actually only losing 20% of that 1 megawatt hour. But I'm getting 1 megawatt hour of value, okay? That's another way of answering. But there is a fourth or fifth one, which is, at the end of the day, this is the same business that I have. My current business was, I put some money on an asset, I produce megawatt hours, I sell those megawatt hours, I pay for my investment. Now here is the same thing. I put an asset, I put money on an asset, I sell megawatt hours, and I pay for my investment. Now the beauty is that on the other project, I have 25 years at least to pay for this asset. On this case, it takes 5 to 10 years, 5 years. So it's really interesting to do these kind of investments. You just have to do it.
The smart grid, very interesting. What, any conclusions, any early conclusions or learnings?
Yeah, you know, the conclusions is that so there are several things, and some previous speakers they talked about it. So information helps and helps people to reduce their consumption, but it's not by reading. I mean, going to look to your smart meter every day to say, "Ooh, I'm spending this amount of energy or money currently." It doesn't change things. It takes some time to change behaviors. But the more important thing is that when I was talking about that slide on distributed storage, distributed generation, and energy management systems, we were talking about technology. But technology by itself doesn't do anything. You need to build upon technology services, energy services, okay? And so what you can do through the deployment of smart grids, and it's different smart grids from smart meters, okay? People always confuse the concepts, but they have different effects. So when you build services around these technologies, you are going beyond selling energy, just selling energy to your customers. You are selling then a service. You are selling an outcome. And the important outcome is that people want comfort. They don't want to consume 10. They want the comfort that 10 is providing. So maybe you can provide the same comfort, but with 8. And then, so if you build your value proposition around 8 or around the comfort concept, I can actually save and get some of the savings from the 2. So that's the big concept and the big effect of smart grids.
Hi, Corrado Accardi, Executive MBA at LBS. You mentioned the fact that the price of the panels for photovoltaic energy has gone down dramatically over the last few years. But the cost of producing them has not gone down with the same speed. So there are quite a few companies which have gone out of the market recently. Are we going towards grid parity or towards an implosion of the industry?
You know, to make forecasts, the only thing that you know is that they are going to fail. Okay, so let me say that my personal belief is that if it really depends on how the demand is going to evolve. I actually believe that typically, if demand goes down, prices would go down. Right? That's what we learn at school. But I actually think on the current economic environment that if demand goes up, we are going to sustain the lowering of prices for 2 reasons. The first is the experience curve effect. The other one is that if you lower the demand, what will happen is that there will be a lot of plants that will go bust. So I'm agreeing with you. And if they go bust, the plants that are currently producing at 80%, because there are plants producing at 80, 90%, they will have room to increase prices, okay? Now, if demand goes up, there is a competitive tension that is running for scale that won't allow prices to go up and will push prices to go down. So it's kind of, you need to have the right balance in the industry, and I'm not sure if that balance is going to happen or not. What I'm seeing is that China is putting a big effort on going on photovoltaic, and that leads me to think that prices will tend to go down. I mean, we are seeing those prices to go down, but panels are just a fraction of the total cost. You have two other costs that are very important. One is the inverters. They have big room to reduce, and the current incumbents, they are lowering by their prices to prevent competition to enter. And the other has to do with installation. Installation is a big thing, because even if you have grid parity, you won't have the ecosystem in place to reap the benefits of the grid parity. It will take time. People to know how they can install solar panels very fast, very efficient. And there is a big room for those prices to lower too.
Please join me in thanking Mr. Coutinho for a great presentation. Thank you.